Evan and I have been dating for 10 years. I accidentally answered his phone call. Evan, our kittens just had a litter. A gentle female voice. The caller ID read, kitten. He's in the shower. Call later. I coldly ended the call. That night, Evan went crazy, picking up his clothes scattered on the floor, threw them on, and rushed out. I wrecked our home and erased everything about myself. Then I got on a plane to another country. 3 years later, Evan caught up with me on a vacation island. He stared intensely at the child beside me, who resembled him a bit, eyes red, and asked, "Mine?" Evan was full of energy. I was exhausted, barely able to open my eyes. My phone kept ringing, and in my drowsiness, I answered it. "Honey, our kittens just had a litter." It was a gentle, cute voice, but my mind felt like it exploded. Wide awake now, I glanced at the caller ID, kitten. "Honey," she called out. I took a deep breath and replied calmly, "He's in the shower. Call later." There was a pause on the other end, then she hung up. When Evan came out of the shower, he only had a towel around his waist. Water droplets from his body trickled down his muscles and soaked into the towel. There were a few fresh scratch marks, my handiwork. "Why aren't you sleeping more?" He stared at the red marks on my collarbone, his eyes darkening. As he leaned in closer, I handed him the phone. Frowning displeased, he tossed the phone aside and pinned my hands, his breath teasing my skin. "Our little kittens," I said. He paused. "She called to tell you about your kittens." Evan's eyes cleared, and crazily, he picked up his scattered clothes, threw them on and rushed out. I was alone, in our shared home, watching him run to another girl. She was his blind date from 3 months ago. They grew close quickly, even adopted a stray cat together. She shared food, music, even mundane things like a cloud with him. He responded to everything, sending her dinner pictures after cropping me out. Meanwhile, Evans and my texts were strictly work-related. Only in the dead of night, tangled up, he'd whisper "wife" in my ear, a term of endearment I cherished for 10 years. I laughed bitterly, pulled out Evan's cigarette pack from the drawer. Not used to smoking, I choked and teared up. A colleague, Coco, texted me, "Nora, did you know Evan's dating someone?" We were always professional in front of others, often arguing due to differing opinions. No one could imagine him teasing me. What can you do? Just pamper them. Such scenes were unimaginable. But today, Evan added the girl to the company's group chat. "Hi everyone, I'm Evan's assistant Jenny, please take care of me." Her nickname in the chat was Evan's kitten. No need for words, it was clear. I didn't know how Evan explained the call I answered. Just knew Jenny friended everyone in the company. Checking one by one, Coco sent an eye roll emoji. "Work is annoying enough, now I'm a presumed rival." Shortly after, Jenny posted on social media with a picture of a green tea. Caption, "Don't touch others' phones without permission, it's rude." Evan liked it. With a blank expression, I grabbed a bat and smashed the house. Only when it was a complete mess did I smile, satisfied. When the cleaning team arrived, I sat dazed on the only intact sofa. Not because it was special, but because I was tired. So very tired. Are you alright?" Noticing my dishevelment, they asked. Evan's chat window was still open from 2 hours ago. I shook my head gently, giving a sincere smile. "Remove all women's items from here." Evan and I were college classmates. He grew up privileged, with a planned future, needing only to follow the path. But he was stubborn, broke away from his family, started his own business. I was his first partner. He funded it, I did the work. I asked him once, "Why choose me?" There were many more capable than I in college. He casually twirled his pen, studying me, with a genuine smile. "I like you." I was taken aback. The defiant spirit in me. Once, my ambitious vitality attracted him. Later, it became something he feared. Jenny was different, simple. His future wife needed to be a simple girl who revolved around him. He was clear-headed, knew what he wanted, and acted on it. We were alike, rebellious, like hunting predators on edge. Thus, we mutually thrived in the business world. The maneuvering at dinner tables, ruthless in practice, helped us rise. The night we made our first fortune, we drank too much, lying in bed, money scattered around. Evan turned to look at me, an unreadable expression in his eyes. "Nora, you're incredible." I smiled, "So are you." Intense work took a toll, and Evan finally fell ill, running a high fever. I tended to him, but he rolled over, trapping me beneath him. I remember, his eyes were red, his skin burning with fever, like a boiled shrimp. "I like you." This time without pause, no suffix. He stopped restraining his emotions, his scent of tobacco and mint around me. Soft whimpers turned into moans, his touch setting my heart ablaze, sinking together. I moved back into my own apartment. Over the years, I've pampered myself too much. I got used to recognizing beds, and ended up sleepless all night. When I returned to the company, I happened to bump into Evan. I nodded politely and distantly. Evan frowned. "Hi, I'm Evan's fiancé." Jenny jogged over and stood between us. I nodded back, "Hello." Hearing my voice, her expression shifted a bit. I didn't chit-chat further and headed straight to the elevator. "Nora, right?" Jenny followed me, with Evan right behind her. "I've heard Evan mention you a lot. You're very capable at work. However, women shouldn't show up too much and hang around with men. It's not good. Shopping with friends and doing some beauty treatments is more relaxing. Let men handle work. Right, Evan?" Evan gently ruffled her hair. Do I dare to disagree? Faced with Jenny's provocations, I didn't react much. She probably recognized my voice and hurried to show off her affection with Evan, claiming her possession. "In the company, call me president. If you can't, I'll let the HR department arrange training for you, meals and lodging included." I ignored their reactions and brushed off where Jenny had touched. However, my actions angered Evan. After sending Jenny away, he came straight into my office. I frowned, displeased. Evan knocking his basic manners. The last 4 words, I emphasized heavily. I repeated Jenny's words back to him. He curved his lips, bent down, trapping me between his arms and the sofa. "You opened the door yourself last night." He glanced at my skirt, clearly implying something. I slapped him without hesitation. A bright red handprint instantly appeared on his pale cheek. Evan rubbed his jaw, smiled, and sat across from me. "The house in the west of the city is now under your name, and the plot of land you liked is about to be approved." He half closed his eyes, his expression indifferent. Good terms end well. He could always accurately hit my weak spots. I handed him the knife. He drove it all into me. At that moment, he stood over me, just like those so-called stepdads I had. They'd profess love on one hand and buy it off with money on the other. A lover's game, under the guise of love. When Jenny came in with a lunchbox, she caught me splashing water on Evan. She screamed and rushed in, slapping me. I've never been one to take it lying down. The only time I did was with Evan. My hand, raised midair, was grabbed by Evan. He shielded Jenny, his voice filled with restrained anger. "Nora, this is not the place for your tantrums." I lifted my other hand and slapped him hard across the face. Seeing the symmetrical handprints on Evan's cheeks instantly cheered me up. "Without Evan, would you, a woman, be where you are today?" Jenny stepped up to defend Evan. "You're fired." "Why?" Jenny raised her head, trying to look imposing. "Because I own 30% of the shares." "Because you barged into my office without permission and assaulted senior management." Jenny panicked, her eyes dodging. Seeing Evan silent, she continued fearlessly. "Evan is the majority shareholder, and I'm his fiancé. Who do you think you are? If anyone should leave, it's you." A crowd had gathered at the office door. Evan stayed silent, tacitly supporting her. There was no need to continue this dispute. "Fine, let's end it. I'll sell my shares to you at market price." "Evan, I've done my utmost." Evan, who had been silent, showed a few cracks in his cold demeanor when I produced the agreement. He probably didn't expect I had already prepared it, ready to leave. Jenny smiled, feeling secure in her favored position. "Who called the police?" Covering my face, I stepped forward, stumbling. "I've been hit. I'm feeling dizzy and nauseous." After getting checked at the hospital, it turned out to be a mild concussion. If I refused to settle, Jenny would at least be detained for a few days. Evan smirked knowingly, clearly seeing through the act. Jenny finally panicked, clinging tightly to Evan's shirt. "Evan, I don't want to stay here overnight. I'm scared." Evan softly reassured her, telling her not to be afraid. He'd handle everything. "When it comes to money, I'm not oblivious to reality either." Outside the police station, Evan yanked me into a dark corner. "For money, you really have no shame." I grabbed his tie, pulling hard. He had no choice but to look me in the eye. "When you stepped on my face to flatter your new love, you should have expected consequences." Evan just laughed instead of getting angry, pulling me close by the waist. "Tone it down. No man can handle you like this." I pushed him away disgustedly, heading to the parking lot. Evan's voice reached me. "You know how my mom is. She's not been well these past 2 years, and Jenny fits her ideas perfectly." I ignored him, opened my car door, only to have Evan block it. "Nora, I can give you anything except marriage. Get lost." I slammed the door shut and drove away. In the rearview mirror, he stood with his hands in his pockets, backlit and unreadable. The street lights stretched his shadow long. Back home, I headed straight to bed after a bout of nausea and retching in the hospital restroom. The next day, I woke up to a call from my mom. Nora, you haven't come home for dinner in a while. I checked the date and agreed. A stranger answered the door. Nora, this is your uncle. My mom introduced him. I sighed. Another new boyfriend. Unlike the refined men before, this uncle looked practical. At the dinner table, my mom eagerly piled food on my plate. Nora, your uncle's son just graduated this year. Let him help out at your company. Even though I was prepared, a wave of sadness still washed over me. I quit. Why would you quit a perfectly good job? Did you do something to upset Evan? My mom, surprised, put down her utensils. She thought for a moment before suggesting, maybe you should buy some fruit and go apologize to him. Evan doesn't seem like a kid who forgets the good times. I slammed my utensils on the ground, making a loud clattering noise. Mom started to choke up and cried on my uncle's shoulder. This kid has been stubborn since she was little. Whenever she's upset, she breaks things and throws tantrums. If her dad hadn't abandoned us, I wouldn't have had to raise her alone, enduring all those sneers. Was it easy for me? Uncle comforted Mom, hugging her tightly. He assured her that from now on, she wouldn't face these challenges alone. Sure, you're the only one who's right in the world. Poor you. I chuckled coldly and, without turning back, walked away from the love fest behind me. Since I was a kid, feeling isolated and bullied stitched together my childhood. I was just my mom's bargaining chip to tie down my biological father. Repeated entanglements and attempts to hold on angered his lawful wife. My mom had to drag me from city to city, wandering. No one welcomed our arrival. They always wanted something from us. Like a stray dog, I had to chase these people away to fight for my rights. To others, I was just a petty, fatherless wild child. Without a man in the house, our orphaned and widowed family will be bullied. Mom pinned all her hopes on men, seeking them repeatedly. New uncles showed up with ulterior motives. That year, I was 12. I came home to find a drunk man pressing my mom to the ground, hitting her. The person lying helplessly on the floor was my only family in the world. I used all my might to fight a grown man. The irrational man pulled out a knife. I felt a strange sense of relief, thinking everything could finally end. My mom, however, threw herself over me, unwavering, holding me tightly. Her white clothes slowly soaked up with red. I thought, in this life, we are destined to torment each other. You've done so much for the company. Are you really okay with this? Coco, who I had mentored, regretted my departure. I propped my chin, taking a sip of sake. Okay with it. A decade of love and hate. I had fantasized about the future. But when faced with a tough choice, there are no winners. Once the point of no return is crossed, it's wise to cut your losses. Seeing I had no intention of turning back, Coco started complaining. To appease Jenny, Evan gave her a do-nothing executive position. Jenny, paranoid, interrogated every unmarried woman in the company. She came up with absurd assessments, even banning makeup and skirts at work. This drove multiple clients away. I never saw this coming. Evan, usually so composed, allowed this madness. Maybe the Evan I knew was never the real him. Or perhaps, his favoritism towards Jenny was the exception. But none of that matters to me now. On the day I left Boston, it was drizzling. Mom was busy bonding with her new son, hastily ending our phone call. Right before boarding, Tom called me. He was a childhood friend of Evan's. We had met a few times. We weren't strangers. I'm not sure how he found out I was leaving the country. Nora, you don't need to run to a foreign country. I've arranged to get together. Evan will be there too. Let's clear the air. We can still be friends. In the private room, Tom clutched his phone, looking troubled. On the other end, Nora had hung up. When he called again, only the mechanical voice remained. The room's atmosphere dropped to freezing. Evan's eyes were dark with suppressed anger. It was his idea to call. He thought if he showed weakness, she would soften. In his heart, he wondered, hadn't he treated her well enough? He first noticed Nora because of her pretty face. Later, he was attracted to her defiant spirit. He remembered Nora questioning the principal about scholarship fairness while standing on an award stage. Her small figure challenged the world's rules. Evan admitted Nora was exceptional, but Boston wasn't short of talent. He gave her resources and connections, elevating her to her current standing, even going public with their relationship among friends. What else could she be dissatisfied with? Evan, if you can't let go, then go get her back. Tom, who had just lost his wife, sincerely advised. Evan irritably lit a cigarette, scoffing. It was just a fling. She really thinks she's something special. On the surface, Evan seemed indifferent, but his recent odd behavior exposed his bluff. For example, he deliberately tolerated Jenny's antics, letting the news reach Nora. He often inquired about Nora, lingering by her place, but never approaching. Tom had advised him several times to confront his true feelings, But Evan didn't care. What right did Nora have to defy him? She only counted on his affection. He could give Nora everything, and take it all back. Now that his family relationships had improved, he just needed a word. People would scramble to do his bidding. How would a calculating person handle losing everything? He awaited that day. The day Nora, with nowhere else to turn, would humble herself before him. Then, out of old feelings, he might reluctantly accept. After I turned off my phone, I finally had some peace. For the past 27 years, I've been rushing, never daring to stop. It felt like stopping would mean getting abandoned by the world. Nora, what are you chasing? I asked myself. My heart felt empty, with no answers. They say at the edge of the world, those who see the aurora can have their wishes come true. After landing in Northern Europe, I found a small inn to stay in. Evan and I had come here on a business trip, but it was snowing then, and we returned quickly. Others with similar purposes to mine were frequent, and, coincidentally, many stayed at this inn. Some were friends, family, or couples. So, we all just sort of ended up forming a spontaneous sightseeing group. This small town doesn't have any skyscrapers, only endless snowy mountains and fjords. The sunset casts its glow on the white mountain peaks. A plane takes off in the twilight, stirring up layers of seagulls that circle in the air, chirping melodiously. Night falls, the clouds gather, and even the stars are few. But there's always a way. Someone suggested we should chase the lights. A few of us rented a car, and hired a local aurora hunter to start a childish journey of chasing the lights. The car drove through the dim night, until that glimmer appeared on the horizon. It's the Northern Lights, someone cheered excitedly. A burst of light, blending the sky and water, piercing through the layers of mountains, striking the soul. Why aren't you making a wish? Someone asked me. I was at a loss for words. Perhaps I used to have many thoughts and wishes. For example, I wished Mom could care a bit more about me. And I wished for many years ahead with Evan. But at that moment, I couldn't utter a single word. I hope my mom gets better. A guy beside me prayed sincerely. I clasped my hands together, imitating him, and silently wished, let me be healthy and have all my wishes come true. By the bonfire, travelers held hot cocoa, sharing their stories. Some wished for lifelong love. Some carried their last hopes, praying for their family's safety. I had never felt so peaceful and immersed in the moment. In the past, my mind was filled only with weighing pros and cons, risk analysis of an event and confirmation of its return on investment. Being emotional was always a luxury for me, because once you fall into the abyss, no one will pull you out, and they might even step on you. Evan's presence allowed me to draw a few breaths of leisure in suffocating times, to explore the emotional field I dared not touch. I repeatedly told him my flaws, my family background, my unsightly side, to scare him away, to show him I was not worth investing in. But he persistently approached me, affirming everything about me, only to break everything in the end and shatter it to pieces. He stabbed me in the heart again and again. It was bloody painful yet exhilarating. The snow embraced me, and the tears in my eyes froze into frost. I spread my arms wide, immersing myself in a dance with the snow, responding to this imagined comfort. It's no big deal, Nora. Dense clouds rolled in, and people sighed in disappointment. What bad luck, it's snowing, let's go back. On the way back, an unexpected event occurred suddenly. The car overturned several times. Everything outside was a white blur. An avalanche. Sounds of terror, blame, and self-pity filled the air. I had countless times imagined what it would be like for a family to go to an amusement park. I could wear a pretty bow, ride on Dad's shoulders, put away all my prickles, and like a real child, point at a plush toy and say, Mom, I want that one. But at the moment of life and death, I realized, the ties between people are always staged, whether it's family, friendship, or love. Just like now, the grievances in the car turned into mutual encouragement. We're all going to make it, someone shouted, and everyone began to work hard to break the windows. Before this, we didn't really know each other. Because of this journey, we encouraged each other. After today, mountains and waters would make us mere passers-by in each other's lives. After being rescued, I lay limp on the ground. I drew a little sun on the soft snow, a mark that belonged only to Nora. Iterate and replace, my traces may get erased, but I was truly here. To love someone, love yourself first. When trapped in the mud, only self-help works. I think my own journey has just begun. At the lady's birthday banquet, Jenny was wearing a dark blue dress, standing beside the lady. The guests were either rich or noble. Evan stood at the edge of the crowd, looking at the night sky in a daze, as if the hustle and bustle had nothing to do with him. People walked by, holding glasses, coming to congratulate. Congrats, Evan, for finding such a beauty. Yes, It was also the great day of his engagement to Jenny. People thought Evan was so happy he drank glass after glass. A drunken Evan hugged Jenny, but he was calling out my name. Coco sent me a video of the scene. That incident caused a huge commotion. Jenny left in tears. Evan was hit by his father and sent straight to the hospital. Nora, I didn't know you had a thing with Evan. I kept mentioning Jenny to you all the time. You must have been so sad back then. On the phone, Coco apologized to me. I shook my head. It's all in the past. Up to this point, I now understand. Evan never really put me on equal footing. Maybe he had some feelings for me, but just a few. He could be with Jenny for family interests, and also use underhanded means to make me submit. He lifted me up to where I am, and he can take it all back. My properties were mysteriously frozen, most of my funds and stocks vanished. Thinking back to that text he sent at midnight, "Come back to me, and it's all yours again." Using intimidation and temptation had been one of our methods in the business world. Now, he uses it against me, someone who once fought alongside him. I smiled faintly, slipped the phone card out, and tossed it in the trash. Against the light, I head towards my next destination. In the hospital, Evan is wrapped in bandages. The assistant stood beside him, nervously bending over to report to him. Ever since the boss publicly announced his relationship with Nora at his engagement party, he's been a different person. He used to be calm, but now he's got a hair-trigger temper. The general office is having a rough time. They're almost constantly in touch with foreign contacts, keeping an eye on everything Nora does abroad and reporting every little detail. She went missing. An avalanche, buried under the snow, lost. Evan's heart skipped a beat, his eyes almost losing focus. Before the assistant could finish talking, a cup flew past Evan's temple and shattered on the ground. Evan went nuts. He ignored his still healing broken ribs, braced on the frame, and went to investigate personally. The updates he got were consistent. She was still missing. The news was reporting on it too. A small town in Western Europe had an avalanche due to extreme weather, and tourists were trapped. Rescue efforts were underway. She'll be fine, Evan told himself, shaking his head. She's clever. She'll have hidden away. Disregarding advice, Evan ordered a private jet to be prepped immediately. He wanted to head to Northern Europe as quickly as possible and bring her back. But he didn't even make it out of the hospital before they dragged him back to his room. To prevent his injuries from worsening, his mother had no choice but to have him tied to the bed and sedated. She had never seen her son so irrational and manic. Evan once brought that girl home. She wasn't from a good background, carried too many burdens, and had a heavy heart. His mother had seen women like that around her husband and didn't want her son to go through the same thing. "Mom, please let me go find her," Evan, emaciated and frail on the hospital bed, pleaded. His mother softened and promised her son that once he recovered, she'd help find her. The Evan family used all their connections but got nowhere. The only things they found were a journal and a pregnancy report. The report showed Nora was over 3 months pregnant. Evan's eyes turned red, and his fingers trembled as he opened the journal. "Evan, you once told me that lovers who witnessed the aurora would meet again in the next life. It's a pity we never saw it together, and now we've lost each other. I brought the baby to see it. The aurora is beautiful. If you were here, you'd surely be amazed by nature's wonders too. I'm pregnant. Despite all your precautions, this new life came unexpectedly. Could it be our destiny's way of keeping us connected? I wanted to come back and tell you about the baby. Though I grew up a victim of my environment, at this moment, I find myself cruelly thinking of using this child to keep you. The news about you and Jenny's engagement cancelled my return ticket. Everything I've seen and experienced on this journey, even the simplest cloud, I want to share with you. In the past, I wouldn't have dared to think like this. I knew the gap between us, which is why I never stopped grinding until I had the courage to stand by your side. The snow is devouring us. The baby and I might never make it back. Fate seems to have decided that we were never meant to be. Evan on the hospital bed was already sobbing uncontrollably. The journal entry halted on February 20th, their 10th anniversary. The last line read, "Evan, wishing you a happy marriage and many children." Evan stared blankly out the window, looking like a different person. In those days, Evan replayed every memory with Nora. They had spent 10 years together, 10 years of countless nights and days, entwined and supporting each other. He had already fallen in far deeper than he realized, not just physically, but on a spiritual level. Spending a few days with Jenny made him understand. What he needed wasn't someone tender and revolving around him, but someone who, with just a look, would overcome 1,000 obstacles to stay in sync with him. But he lost her, and their child. What was he doing then? Oh, he was busy getting engaged to someone else. Thinking of this made his heart feel like it was about to explode. The unbearable grief pierced through his chest, right to the edge of death. Evan lay in bed, kept alive by nutrient drips. Tom visited a few times and, seeing his fasting state, couldn't help but curse. What were you doing before? What act are you putting on now that she's dead? Once he heard Tom, Evan struggled to get up, but could only retort weakly due to his frail body. She's not dead. She's not dead. She and the baby are fine. If Evan weren't so close to death, Tom would have beaten him up. Then go find her. What's the point of this dying act? Hearing this, it was as if Evan was injected with adrenaline. He had someone bring him food and began shoving it into his mouth recklessly. His stomach was already ruined, and he could only kneel on the floor, vomiting profusely. Seeing his improvement, Jenny came to visit. Though she was bothered by what happened to Nora, she figured there was no point in competing with a dead person. Besides, in aristocratic marriages, it was common for couples to live their own lives. Evan had a good appearance, came from a wealthy family, and she did have feelings for him. On the bright side, affection could grow over time. On the downside, she'd grown up seeing how high society operated and figured she could handle most of it. As long as she had a child with him, her future would be secure. However, as soon as she walked in, Evan grabbed her throat tightly. If not for you, she wouldn't have taken the child abroad. How dare you show up in front of me? It's your fault she's gone. His grip tightened, and Jenny couldn't even cry out for help. Evan had gone completely mad. If his mother hadn't arrived in time, the consequences would have been unthinkable. Evan's father was furious and ordered him to be sent for closed treatment. Evan recovered physically while biding his time to escape. One day, during a shift change, he made his move. He snuck out, determined to find his former love. He searched the endless snow mountains year after year. 3 years later, I'm vacationing on an island in the southern hemisphere. Nearby, a child waves a chubby hand and pleads, "Buy me an ice cream, pretty please." The young man applying sunscreen on me chuckles, "Call me daddy, and I'll buy you one." Don't spoil him, he'll complain about a toothache later. Before I finished speaking, the two were already running off happily. I rolled my eyes, put on my sunglasses, and continued soaking in the sun. The skin on my back suddenly tightened, and the pressure moving across my palm increased significantly. I frowned in displeasure. Gentler, the breathing behind me seemed heavier, but I didn't pay it any mind. Suddenly, a warm palm pressed forcefully along my spine, hitting a sensitive spot about 3 inches down from my lower back. I couldn't control myself, and let out a cry. Fortunately, there weren't many people around. I angrily turned my head, meeting Evan's face, which was barely containing his rage. His frame was thin, and dark circles underscored his eyes, suggesting he hadn't rested well in a long time. "Do you have any idea how long I've been looking for you?" Evan choked up. "I thought you really... What? You unhappy I'm still alive?" I calmed myself. Evan's eyes turned red as he stared at me intensely, his voice trembling with an uncontrollable sadness. "I thought I couldn't find you on Earth. I might as well search in hell. If someone hadn't mentioned seeing you here, you'd never see me again. So what? You think you're some kind of golden treasure?" I stood up expressionlessly to leave, but Evan grabbed my wrist tightly, pulling me into his arms. "I've been looking for you for 3 years. 3 whole years. And all I had was your notebook to get me through those cold, endless nights. I gave up everything for you. Even knowing you deceived me, my pathetic heart still softened. I just want us to go back to how we were before. Isn't my sincerity enough? How could you treat my feelings like this?" Evan's eyes reddened, and he yelled in a broken voice, "Nora, do you even have a heart?" As Evan and I struggled, a child returned unnoticed and jabbed 2 ice cream cones onto Evan's knees, causing the sticky ice cream to merge with his suit pants. "Big bully, let go." Evan glanced down at the child, who bore a slight resemblance to him, and a flash of tenderness crossed his eyes. "Mine?" Before I could respond, the child called out to the distance, "Daddy, come quick. There's a bad man." Evan's face darkened, biting out a few words through gritted teeth. "You let my son call someone else daddy." When Mike rushed back, he punched Evan on the mouth. Evan wiped away the blood from his lips and stopped his bodyguards from retaliating. "Nora, come back with me, or I'll kill this man." Mike's youthful pride flared up instantly. "You dare threaten me?" Mike's security team closed in upon hearing his shout. They had the power, and I didn't want to get too deeply involved. "Our child is gone." I didn't say more, just grabbed the child and turned to leave. Evan and his bodyguards tried to follow, but Mike's security team blocked their way. "Don't go. You said you loved me. That diary. I don't believe it was all lies." His desperate shouts echoed behind me. 3 years ago, I was constantly watched, each step obstructed, so I bribed contacts to silence my whereabouts and sent Evan a significant gift. I wanted him to remember me always and how our child had hopelessly died, while he was enjoying his fling. I amplified his guilt, so every time he reaches for happiness, that guilt would haunt him forever. The diary's contents were partly true and partly false. The child's mother was my business partner. I acknowledged the kid as my godson. Evan still didn't give up and secretly tested the child's hair. The results devastated him. He had to accept our child was gone, now living with another loving family, while he was getting engaged to Jenny. He didn't return home, but discovered my new address. Unlike searching for a needle in a haystack 3 years ago, I wasn't surprised he could find me now. I've long moved on. It's been 3 years. No need to hide anymore. Nora, give me a chance to make it up to you, please. Evan blocked my way. The arrogant, untouchable man I once knew now bent down, pleading. I paused, looking at the man who once stood beside me, with cold indifference. If anything could be compensated for, then what did the desperate, cornered me from 3 years ago mean? Evan, we're all adults. Let's keep some dignity. I paused, remembering his words from the past. End things well. Evan tried to step forward, but was blocked by my assistant, Leo. This gentleman, please show some respect. Leo spoke, gently yet authoritatively. If you continue to pester, we will take legal action to have you deported. Leo opened the back seat door, shielding my head as I got in. Evan stared at Leo's overly familiar actions with gritted teeth. And who are you? After closing the door, Leo handed his business card to Evan. I'm Nora's personal assistant, Leo. If you have any matters to discuss, schedule an appointment with me first. The car drove smoothly away, and I glanced back. Evan was clenching his fists, staring hard in our direction. I couldn't help but laugh, teasing Leo in the passenger seat. I didn't know you were so good at annoying people. You're usually so well behaved. Leo's face remained expressionless. It's my job. Not very fun. I looked down to deal with some paperwork. Out of sight, Leo was staring at the rearview mirror, his fist clenched. With Leo's efforts, I rarely saw Evan anymore. I appreciated his competence and gave him a 2% raise on his year-end bonus. Leo, still with no expression, placed a cup of brown sugar water and a warming patch on my desk. I smacked my forehead, realizing why I'd been so irritable lately. My period had arrived. I flopped onto the sofa as Leo set a meal in front of me. Why isn't it from my usual place? Leo took some utensils and a spoon from the food bag and handed them to me, saying calmly, I made this chicken soup. Don't eat takeout for the next few days. I pouted. It was hard to refuse something he made himself, but I'm on a diet right now. Just as I was feeling conflicted, Leo had already ladled a bowl of soup and handed it to me, saying softly, I skimmed the oil off the top. It won't make you gain weight. I couldn't help but remark, whoever marries you has to celebrate for 3 days and nights. Leo watched me drink the soup, with an expression that I couldn't quite understand. His lips moved like he was about to say something, but he was interrupted by 2 childish voices. Aunt Nora, Aunt Nora, Nora, I came to see you. A kid and Mike rushed toward me, but Leo blocked them and caught them steadily. Aunt Nora, can you take me to the amusement park? The kid clung to my leg. I clutched my faintly aching stomach and forced a smile. How about another day? Aunt Nora isn't feeling well today. Seeing this, the kid's eyes lit up with a clever gleam. Do I have a little sister now? His chubby face rubbed against my stomach. Aunt Nora, did you agree to give Uncle Mike a baby sister? Me? I glared at Mike, who was standing to the side awkwardly. Leo stood up and lifted the kid by his collar, carrying him out. Uncle has some summer homework books for you. When he came back, I had just finished scolding Mike about not causing trouble with the kid. Leo saw Mike reaching for the chicken soup and quickly snatched it away. Leo, what's your problem? Mike frowned, frustrated. Leo's face remained cold, and he smirked slightly. This soup will make you impotent. The next time I saw Evan was in my company's conference room. As a client, I don't accept handouts, but I won't refuse what I earn. Evan was all business, and I couldn't find a fault with him. But Mike grew increasingly more difficult, camping out in my office every day. Wherever I went, he followed, but there wasn't much I could do. He had a distant family connection to my business partner. He's half Chinese, half English, and the youngest in his family, a beloved little prince pampered by everyone. After countless interruptions during my project meetings with Evan, I lost my temper. Mike was stunned for a moment, and his European almond-shaped eyes filled with hurt. It won't happen again. And for a while, he kept his promise. He stopped wearing his leather jacket, switching to suits. He even styled his shoulder-length hair with gel, looking quite mature. Dressed up, he looked the part. Mike dropped the contract on the table, protesting, I'm not a kid. I've grown up. Something must have set him off. He ran home to take over a company, and now he wanted to discuss business with me. When it came to work, he was drowsy and hungry, but anything to do with Evan put him on high alert, like a guard dog, squinting his eyes and showing clear hostility. Though I felt uneasy, I chalked it up to his spoiled tantrums. Until the celebration party for the successful project, Evan clinked glasses with me, his eyes deep. Nora, we still work so well together. We're practically a match made in heaven. He hadn't even finished speaking when the lights dimmed and a soft, romantic symphony began to play. When the lights came back on, Mike was walking toward me with Ecuadorian roses. He knelt on one knee and offered a diamond ring. Nora, will you marry me? I quickly pulled him up and whispered, are you crazy? I'm 11 years older than you. Mike held my hand back, sounding hurt. Do you think I'm too young? I've grown up. I can be mature and responsible. I sighed and gently pushed his hand away. You don't need to change for anyone. I just see you as a playful younger brother. Mike's eyes dimmed briefly, but then filled with hope again. Then get used to seeing me as your boyfriend. When I didn't know how to respond to make him give up, Leo draped his coat over my shoulders and led me off the stage. Back at the villa, I let out a sigh of relief. Leo brought me a cup of calming tea, then stood behind me, gently massaging my temples with his thumb. Thanks, I said. It's part of my job. My business partner called. I pouted and answered, stop teasing me. I'm losing my mind. Mike, half German, half English, 187 centimeters tall, and worth millions. Why can't you see he's perfect for you? I'm 11 years older than him, I argued, and on the other end, Mike's voice burst in. I'm not a kid. Nora, I really like you. I really, really like you. He was cut off by the kid's mother, who said, he's 19. It's different here. People can get married at that age. If you're worried about his family, don't be. They're open-minded and will support whatever Mike wants. Even if you end up breaking his heart, his family can handle it. It's not like he's coerced me into saying this. It's just the truth. You're 30, still the prime time to take risks. I firmly declined Mike, but he wouldn't take no for an answer, sticking around my company under the pretense of work, constantly clashing with Evan. So, I tried my best to avoid both of them, letting Leo handle everything. Leo always managed things well, giving me a period of peace. But those good days didn't last long. Evan got drunk and made a scene outside my home. Nora, what will it take for you to forgive me? I'll give you everything I have. Everything. Come home with me. Mike was there causing trouble too. Nobody would even want to throw your trash in the garbage. Nora, don't take his, take mine. I'm clean. I pinched the bridge of my nose, peeled off my freshly applied face mask, resisting the urge to slap them both. I made a call to get someone to pick up the drunk Mike. The argument outside the door continued without pause. Evan didn't really see Mike as a rival. He was more wary of that guy Leo. He firmly believed that Nora didn't like loud, immature punks like Mike. In terms of both personality and ability, Evan was far more steady than someone like Mike, who lived off his parents. Evan scoffed. Mike, irritated by the provocation, snapped back immediately. You're old and washed up, and you're still scoffing. Touched on a sore spot, Evan's anger flared up along with the alcohol in his system. I dated Nora for 10 years, and we even had a child, he said. Then, Evan froze for a moment. It seemed that his competitiveness had dwindled to almost nothing, and now he was just resigning himself to his fate. Didn't keep her heart though. Shows how lousy you are, Mike retorted, shoving Evan until he stumbled and fell to the ground. When I opened the door, I'd arrived just in time to take their young master away. I had never seen Evan look so dejected. He sat there on the ground, eyes full of despair as he looked at me. Nora, did you know? Evan said, I've been looking for you for the past 3 years, and I often dream. I dream of that child crying so miserably, waving at me, asking why I abandoned them. It tears my heart apart. I'm sorry, Nora. I'm really sorry for what I did to you. Evan covered his face with one hand, trying to protect what little dignity he had left, but tears still seeped through his fingers. I sighed. Go back. Don't look for me anymore. We can't go back to what we had. Thinking of his once high-spirited self, now tormented after 3 years, at barely in his 30s, strands of silver had grown through his jet-black hair. My heart sank, and I knew this entanglement had to end cleanly. Evan dropped to his knees, clutching the hem of my clothes. Please, give me another chance. I'm ruined because of you. Have pity on me. Forgive me, please. I didn't turn around. My silence was the answer. Making the same mistake twice was enough. Regret won't change the past, but we can still look forward. Unable to contain his rising emotions under the streetlight, Evan clutched his shirt over his heart, curling into the corner and letting out gut-wrenching sobs. He could only watch his love walk away, never looking back. Once, he thought that life and death separation was the most painful thing, but he realized, meeting someone close enough to touch yet out of reach was much more excruciating. The person walking away was gold he had found in his youth, but now, that gold no longer belonged to him. It completely abandoned him. Even without his support, the gold still shone brightly, irresistibly. He had to admit it. Nora was fine without him. He had never been her only one. In this entanglement, he was the only one left standing still, forever anchored in place.